Hey there. Hey, join us.
Oh!
Yeah, I know. Well, look, I get it. It's Thursday, which means
Yep.
it's almost Friday, which means it's almost the weekend, which means sleep. But playoff baseball ending after 1 a.m. Eastern time, it's kind of a killer. It's not. That's
your eyes.
They're open.
They are mostly
just barely,
open.
Mostly, yeah, squinty.
We're here, so if that doesn't keep you watching, maybe our guest will. I'm Emerson Lotzia. He's Adam Kaufman. This, by the way, is The Sweat, just, in case you happen to fall upon it.
Yeah,
on the internet.
Thanks for checking us out. Do so every day, by the way. Always here. Nothing else to do. Hey, we're gonna get to baseball. The Red Sox poised to close out the Astros. We'll do that a little bit later on. As usual, though, this time of year, we're gonna start with football. We're joined by DK Live's Reed Fowler, Anna Mancuda from Phantom Sports, and the Action Network's Anthony Amico. See, there's the panel right there.
Hey,
it's not just baseball tonight, boys. Broncos, Cardinals. Who's excited? Thursday night football, ready to battle in Arizona. Thursday night picks, though, we got to cover it so that we can set the best possible showdown lineups.
Yeah, and it's interesting pricing tonight, too, for David Johnson and Manny Sanders. They're more expensive than quarterbacks Casey Keenum and Josh Rosen. Do you like either one of these quarterbacks, Adam, considering there may be some value there?
Nope. Goodness. I mean, Case Keenum had that great week one where we were like, oh my goodness, he actually might be good for 2 consecutive years. But then, he had thrown for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks. Since then, he's been a disaster. And the Broncos are probably regretting giving him that contract, and he won't be probably the starting quarterback come next season. On the other side of the ball, I think Rosen's developing. They're giving him more throws to make, but I just don't trust either one tonight. I actually like playing both defenses potentially because I think this could be a high turnover game for both. If I had to pick one, I'd go with Rosen. I think he has a little bit more talent with Christian Kirk developing into a solid receiver there. I don't trust Demaryius Thomas. The Broncos' rush game isn't that great. Manny Sanders has been good, but even he had that knucklehead factor last Sunday. Gave 4 points back to the Rams in that touchdown celebration. That wasn't a touchdown. So for me, I don't trust either quarterback, but if I had to pick one, it's Rosen.
Yeah, Reed, I'm not saying you have to pick one here, but, do you prefer one maybe, again, because of some value? They're pretty cheap.
Yeah, if you look at the stats alone, right, you're thinking, okay, the Broncos and Cardinals are play the opposing quarterbacks well. That's not the case. It's the running backs for opposing teams just they run all over them, right? So they have to pass, and that's really the case here, right? You look at Arizona in terms of run and pass DVOA, they're 30th and 32nd respectively. And so that offense, while Rosen is throwing more, you see him at 31 attempts, right, 27, 35. He is throwing it more. Christian Kirk is getting more. He's the highest targeted receiver there. I just don't trust Rosen. He hasn't eclipsed 12 points yet. You look at Keenum, yeah, he's bad, but he's gotten back-to-back 20-plus DK points.
Yeah, he
and
does.
that defense in Arizona, yes, they can pressure the quarterback, but Keenum has, in my opinion, a little more targets to throw to, especially in that running back game. So I would prefer to not play these guys, but if I had to, it'd be Case Keenum.
Anthony, what do you think? Who do you trust more, Keenum or Rosen? You're not touching either one of them with a 10-foot pole.
I actually think this game's going to feature a little bit of scoring, so I think you can play both quarterbacks. But if I'm going to pick one, I'm going with Rosen. The Cardinals have just been loads better with him as a starting quarterback. They're averaging about twice as many points per drive in Rosen's 3 starts. They're playing a lot faster, running 6 more plays per game in his starts. So, I think all the components are there for a good fantasy day. He just hasn't had a chance to do a ton yet. They had, obviously, the nice win against San Francisco. They've been playing these games pretty close. But I think that this is a nice breakout spot. Denver's defense has been reeling. They really haven't been anything close to what they were a couple years ago. I think this is a breakout spot for Rosen.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for spending a couple of minutes stomaching the idea of playing the quarterbacks. I know you did not want to.
It's your job, guys.
Yeah, well, listen, you're team players. But let's go to the stars of these teams, Johnson and Sanders. Who would you take if you can only have one of them, Reed?
It's David Johnson here, like I mentioned earlier. If you look at what the Broncos have given up to opposing running backs, they've given up big games. And David Johnson, yeah, we've seen him struggle a lot lately in terms of the play calling. He's not running as many pass routes, but this guy is still averaging 19 attempts and 4 touchdowns. 19 attempts over the last 3 games. He's gotten 4 touchdowns in those games, and he's seen 93% of those snaps. Like, he's not getting taken back. He's not getting relief from Edmonds anytime, or Edmonds isn't going in for David Johnson anytime soon. This is the spot to play him. This is a spot to feel a little more comfortable about David Johnson, because he is going to get the amount of carries that we've seen Todd Gurley get. We've seen these guys who have absolutely raked the Broncos in the past. And so to me, it'd be David Johnson. I get the Emmanuel Sanders part, but David Johnson's in a prime spot to, again, if we call it a breakout game, he could have it here.
Only $400 separates the two, Anthony. Are you as high on DJ?
Oh, for sure. I mean, all the work is there. I know that we've been kind of maligning DJ for the lack of pass game work, at least in the way that we're used to. But like Reed said, he still has 4 touchdowns the last 3 weeks. I think that this team still wants to kind of run through him, and the snaps have gone up every single week with Rosen, running the show and then moving the ball better. He's been in a lot better spots. So definitely rolling DJ here.
Adam, same story?
Yeah, think about this. Think about how many yards the Broncos have given up on the ground in the last 3 weeks. 735 yards.
Oh.
This is not like Nebraska of 1980 against some, lesser D1 school. This is professional football. They made Isaiah Crowell 2 weeks ago look like Walter Payton, for crying out loud. So give me David Johnson. I don't even think it's close. Again, I don't trust Keenum either. You know that Johnson's going to get the work in the passing game. He's going to get the goal line carries. For me, this is a no-brainer. I mean, when you give up 245 yards on average over 3 weeks, give me the running back all day, all night.
All right, DJ all day.
Yep. I know, Adam, you just mentioned we're going to start both defenses. You got the Broncos defense, though, hasn't exactly been sharp. 21st in the league in points allowed. So who's the logical target on the Cards' offense? Anthony, take this one.
Yeah, I mean, Adam mentioned him at the top of the show. I think it's Christian Kirk. I mean, he's been great since Rosen took over. 19% target share in that time frame to go along with 13 receptions. Even has a long score to his resume. So he's been doing a lot of different things. And Denver's secondary is a little banged up. Pac-Man Jones isn't going to play tonight. I would imagine that Chris Harris is going to be in the slot against Larry Fitzgerald for most of the evening. So I think Kirk is in a great spot and probably see, coverage that allows him to do a lot of the things that we love for fantasy.
Is that your guy, Adam?
Absolutely. I mean, think about this with Kirk. 2 weeks ago, 85 yards and a touchdown. Last week, 6 catches, 77 yards. That says it all for me. There's not that many weapons out there. As I said, I don't trust Thomas. I don't trust Sanders necessarily with Keenum. So for me, when you're looking at a receiver and rostering one, give me Kirk, who's going to have a great matchup on the other side of the field as, Fitzgerald is going to be covered most likely by Harris. So I think Kirk will score tonight, maybe a long ball. You saw that other teams like the Jets were able to hit them real deep 2 weeks ago. I mean, Robbie Anderson had 3 catches over 100 yards and 2 scores. I think that's Kirk's ceiling tonight.
The logical target on the Cards offense is who, in your opinion, Reed?
Well, this might not be as logical as Christian Kirk. I get that play, but I'm going Ricky Seals-Jones, RSJ here. I think when you look at what that Denver defense does without giving up a ton of yards to opposing running backs is they funnel everything to the middle of the field. Ricky Seals-Jones, while he's put up some goose eggs in the past, he saw 6 targets, 5 receptions last game, and Denver has historically been bad against tight ends. They have smaller linebackers that you should be able to cover with, but they're just not doing it. So Ricky Seals-Jones, who I'll talk about a little bit more, and the next segment is the guy that I'd be choosing.
Well, maybe a little bit of a tease there. How about value picks, guys? Value picks for this game. You got a lot of different options that are right around that 4 to 5K range. Adam, who are you looking at?
Yeah, I like Cortland Sutton, the receiver on the Broncos. This guy was a big play receiver in college at SMU. They played in a pass-heavy offense the last few years. They still are to this day. And to me, Sutton's a guy that they're looking to see how quickly he could develop and probably move on from a Demaryius Thomas if they could. I would expect rumors to start heating up with Thomas as we get closer to the trade deadline, simply because they're not going anywhere. He's got a pretty decent salary, and they'll look to move him. So I think as they try to develop Sutton, he's certainly someone I'd expect them to get more involved, especially in the red zone, where he really is a solid target there.
Reed, did you give us a little bit of a peek before?
Yeah, I mean, if Ricky Seals-Jones obviously is a cheap option there. Like we talked about earlier, we could play the defenses. The Cardinals, I think, in terms of pass rushing, they have the better of the two, which is weird to say, right? Because you got Vaughn and you have Bradley Chubb on the opposite side. But in terms of those linebackers and that secondary, like Trey Boston is out and he's been pretty good in that secondary. But you have Budda Baker and you have these guys who can cover now the bigger options. So in terms of defense, I do like the Cardinals here to, even if they give up points to Case Keenum, who I do like in this game, they're still able to get, like the guys talked about, those turnovers. So if not Ricky Seals-Jones at that value play, I do like the Cardinals defense.
So we've heard a couple of different guys, Anthony. There's also Royce Freeman. You could mix him in, maybe pay up a little bit, but still some value from Larry Fitzgerald. Who do you like?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Adam here. We're going to go with Sutton as well. I mean, he's been consistently playing over 70% of the snaps. Last week he saw a bit of a decline there. I'd imagine that's more of a game plan thing, but I think it's going to leave people forgetting him tonight. Sutton's a fantastic player. I think he's probably the best in terms of all the Denver receivers for the red zone, and he's been really close in both target share and air yards to Demaryius Thomas, who costs $3,600 more. So I think we're getting a good discount on Sutton for his role in the offense, and I think he still has a pretty good ceiling.
Well, let's go with your lock plays of the night here. Who is your slate-approved pick, Reed?
Yeah, it's going to be Phillip Lindsay. I really like him in this spot. We talked about how bad Denver's rush defense is. Arizona's is equally as bad, giving up the third most DK fantasy points. Phillip Lindsay is a guy who's used in the red zone more than Royce Freeman. He's a smaller back, but he can run through the tackles and clearly is a threat in the pass game. So Phillip Lindsay for me.
Where are you going on this, Anthony?
I'm going with Reed's boy, RSJ. I mean, 4K just doesn't match up with his usage. RSJ seeing 19% of Rosen's targets and 32% of teams' air yards. That would lead the league at the tight end position. So pretty crazy numbers he's putting up with Rosen. Denver is bottom 10 in terms of opposing plus-minus against tight ends, according to Fantasy Labs. They are bottom 5 in opponent DVOA against the tight end. I don't even think you need to play a guy cheaper than RSJ tonight with all the value that I think we have at the higher levels. I think he is a smash play.
All right, who's your must play, Adam?
I got to go with David Johnson, and simply because I want to take the best player on this limited slate where I just don't see that much talent out there. So I'm going to take David Johnson, pay down to get some of the other guys. I just have to have Johnson on my lineup. I'm assuming this is going to be a popular play for many people out there. But again, if he's going to get the advantage of going up against that Denver rush defense, that's fine. Give me all those points, and I'll just make up other things. I'll make up other slots elsewhere, maybe with the defenses or Portland Sutton, Seals Jones, someone like that.
All right, guys, thanks a lot. We were just getting started with you, so make sure you stand by. Basketball talk is on the way, but for now, as mentioned, there's a pretty big baseball game tonight down in Houston. Red Sox Astros, Game 5 of the ALCS, and a Boston pitcher everybody is expecting to fail.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Brendan Glasheen here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. David Price said he signed with the Red Sox to win a World Series. Well, Boston's $217 million arm can help the Sox reach the Fall Classic tonight as he is the starter for Game 5 of the ALCS. A few notes on Price before deciding to roster him for 11,400 in showdown mode this evening. He heads to the bump a game earlier than originally planned as Chris Sale is under the weather, so with that, the lefty in David Price is going to pitch on 3 days rest, something he's only done one other time as a starter in his career. That was 2008, 10 years ago. His rookie season with the Rays, he allowed 1 run over 5 1/3 innings pitched. The other slight concern is Price was warming up in the bullpen Wednesday night, though his number wasn't called, and Price actually thinks the pen session makes him more sharp for tonight. I do think pitching on the road away from the Fenway fans, breathing down his neck, helps him. Plus, the warm weather in Houston should be comforting compared to the low 40s in Boston. I think the entire solar system is also aware of the fact Price once again bids for his first ever postseason win as a starting pitcher. Will that narrative live to see another day? We'll find out tonight. This start is no question Price's biggest of his career. He can silence those critics and help your lineups with a bullish outing tonight.
All right, gridiron to the diamond, to the hardwood. We got Action Matt LaMarca here from the Action Network, which you can find on iPhone and Android right now. I'll help you out with that one, Matt. RotoWire's Alex Barutha, along with DK Live's Julian Edlow for an NBA price check.
Felix, let's start with you in the middle, pal. We got a 3-game slate tonight. We need to assess the prices. Ben Simmons, most expensive point guard tonight, nearly 10K, but he was awesome Tuesday in Boston with north of 60 DK points in that blowout loss. Is he worth 9,500?
He is worth 9,500, but not at point guard, I don't think. There are other guys that I really like on this slate. Both Damian Lillard and John Wall are underpriced. We have Campaign at $3,600 with Chris Dunn out for the Bulls. So I think there are a lot of other guys that I would rather slot in at point guard. But fortunately for us, we have Ben Simmons eligible at small forward. So I think the forward position is where I want to target Ben Simmons, who, after seeing what he did to the Celtics, even in that 18-point loss, I definitely want exposure to Simmons against this terrible Chicago Bulls defense.
Alex, same logic. Play him, but play him elsewhere. Stay away from the point.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. I mean, 9,500 to me feels like a steal. Like was just mentioned, he put up about 60 fantasy points against a really good Boston defense, and the Bulls really just don't have anybody to guard him. I mean, their best defender, arguably Chris Dunn, is out. I think Ben Simmons has as high of upside as anybody else in the slate, so I'd be doing everything I can to get him in my lineup.
Matt, is he going to run amok against the Bulls or what?
I mean, he might, but I just think that the way that the prices are laid out on this slate, like he's a little too expensive for me when you look at the other guys. Like I'd rather have Embiid, who's only $200 more. I'd rather have John Wall, who is priced at just $8,200, and he's historically averaged over 45 DK points with a comparable salary. So that's an expectation above salary of 5.55 fantasy points, which is just awesome. And then as was already mentioned, campaign, like you just have to get him in your lineup tonight. So I think that I will probably be using my money elsewhere, but like he's obviously a great player and he could smash in any matchup.
I always enjoy hearing a good campaign.
Why is that?
Well, because yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know if I had to explain it. There.
Well done. Perfect timing back there.
Thank you.
How about this?
Well, when you have to explain it.
Lonzo Ball and his $400 sandals are no longer the face of the Lakers. Not with LeBron James there.
Yeah.
I can confirm. But most are expecting a better sophomore season from him. Does 5,400 feel right in his season debut, Matt?
No, it doesn't. He might have a better like real life campaign, but I just don't see it translating to fantasy, at least at the start of the season. We're projecting Lonzo to come off the bench. Rajon Rondo's going to get the start. We have him at just 24 minutes over at Fantasy Labs. And even though he averaged 1.01 fantasy points per minute last season, that could definitely take a tumble now that LeBron James is in the fold. So I think 5,400 is probably more than I'm willing to pay for him.
Julian, what do you think here? After all the information Matt just delivered, it does seem like 5,400 might be a little too pricey.
Yeah, this whole Lakers lineup is going to be so tough to figure out now. We saw it a little bit in the preseason, but we want to see what it looks like in the season debut. I mean, below LeBron, we have Brandon Ingram at 6,500, Rondo at 58, Ball at 54, Kuzma at 55, KCP at 4,800, Josh Hart at 4,300. Like, Lance Stevenson is in there.
Lance.
How are all these wings going to get minutes? And when you're talking point guards like Ball and Rondo, they now have to coexist with LeBron, who is the best point guard in the league. So I don't trust Rondo. I don't trust Ball. I think they're all overpriced on this slate.
AB, what do you think here? Because his salary is $5,400. He averaged 34.7 DK fantasy points during last season. So do you expect those numbers to go down a little bit, built off of what Jules just mentioned with LeBron now in the mix?
I do expect them to go down. I think you can put Lonzo Ball in your lineup in a tournament on the off chance he does happen to get 30 minutes, because we know he can get 10 boards. We know he can get 10 assists in those minutes. Obviously, yeah, it's a different story with LeBron, but he's got a ton of ways that he can rack up fantasy points. In cash games, though, yeah, it's definitely not a safe pick. I'd probably stay away in that scenario.
Julian, is it LeBron night? Just tell me. I just have to hear it for the first time.
You know what, Kaufman? I'm not totally convinced that it is a LeBron night. If you have the space to pay for him in cash, I definitely think you can, and there is the value here. But, like, Ben Simmons is a lot cheaper and in a better matchup. Even with a 3-game slate, I'm not quite sure it's a LeBron night yet.
That's the man's mantra last year. Julian, it's a LeBron night at low. Yeah,
that makes sense.
It was always a LeBron night. It was
we do have much more Lakers talk coming
last year,
up.
for sure.
We're going to make sure
we got showdown mode between the Lakers and Blazers
Don't
tonight, so that's
you
coming
worry.
up.
Let's go back to the Sixers, though. Like Simmons, Joel Embiid is pricey, 9,700, second only to LeBron, but Heat center Hassan Whiteside, he's 2,700 cheaper, $7,000. Is that the right price? And worth mentioning, of course, he played last night in Orlando, put up 41 fantasy points.
Yeah, center is a really tough spot on this slate because there are some really good plays. Obviously, you can fit 2 of them if you use your utility spot as well. But I do think 7,000 is a really fair price for Whiteside, and he's a great play. Dwight Howard just got ruled out for the Wizards, so that makes that matchup a little bit juicier for Whiteside. He should be a guy that costs around $8,000. The question is, do you want to pay more for Embiid and get him in your lineup? He should be dominating the Bulls. Do Do you want to use the value on the other side of that matchup in Wendell Carter at 4,200 in his NBA debut, but he showed a lot of promise. So there are some really good center plays on this slate, and Whiteside and Embiid are definitely two of them, and Whiteside being the one more underpriced.
Matt, no Howard, yes. Whiteside, what do you think?
I really like both of these guys. I think you can definitely play them together. I mean, you are giving up some value with Wendell Carter Jr., that's for sure. But you can find it at other positions, I think. And if you just look at the spots these guys are in, they're just definite smash spots. Like Embiid, the 76ers have a slate-high implied team total of 116 points, and the Bulls hemorrhaged fantasy points to opposing centers last season. So I think that's a great spot. And Whiteside, for my money, might be the best play on the slate at 7K. The only question with him is he going to get the minutes? And given that we're only 2 games into the NBA season, I don't think he's going to be in Eric Spoelstra's doghouse just yet. You never know. Like, it could definitely happen. But when this guy's on the floor, he's a monster. He averaged 1.34 DK points per minute last season. So to get him at 7K with the upside of playing, 34-ish minutes, I think it's just a really, really good spot. I'm all in on Whiteside.
All right, Matt's all in. What about you, Alex?
Yeah, I have to agree with everything that was said. I mean, I don't really trust Jan Mahinmi or Markieff Morris or whoever's getting thrown out at center for the Wizards to guard Hassan Whiteside, like who you mentioned put up 42 DK points the other night against Orlando. So I think Hassan Whiteside is really good value at where he's priced.
All right, Alex, well, how about Bradley Beal? He's an intriguing option, 6,800, game 1 for the Wizards against the Heat. We just mentioned that. Will he stoke the Flames or what?
I think so. I mean, the Wizards have been talking like they're going to shoot more threes this year. So I expect Bradley Beal to shoot a lot. And we know he has 40 fantasy point upside. And so all in all, yeah, I think at 6,800, you're probably in a good spot there, cash or tournament.
What do you like or do not like about this price tag for Bradley Beal? Take it away, Julian.
I love this price tag for Bradley Beal. Just like we talked about last night, Jimmy Butler being $6,700. Like, Bradley Beal doesn't have to have a good game given this spot. He just has to have an average Bradley Beal game, and he's worth $6,800. He cost, where are the numbers? He cost $8,800 in a matchup against Miami last year. So that's $2,000 more. He had a 49 DK point game against them. He had a 50 DK point game against them. So the upside's there, the salary is there, and Miami only ranked 20th defensively against the shooting guard position last year. So that whole narrative of them being, a top 10 defensive team isn't necessarily there at this position.
Matt, sounds like you can get a lot of value for this guy at 6,800.
Yeah, I love Beal. I mean, if you look at his numbers from last season, he had a career high in assists and rebounds, and he shot more field goal attempts than ever in his career. He didn't make them at the same rate that we've become used to seeing from him. He was sub 40% from three-point range. So if he sees some progression with those numbers, and he's too good of a shooter not to, he could be in for like a really big season. If you look at what he's done with a comparable price tag, he's exceeded salary-based expectations by roughly 5 points on average. So I think 68 is just too cheap for me. Honestly, I think all the guys in these 2 games, the 2 8 o'clock games, are just too cheap on this slate. I think you can build a good lineup without targeting a single Laker or Portland Trailblazer.
Well, got to take advantage of the
That's a
depressed
hot
prices.
take.
Got to do it. All right, guys, so we'll have you back a little bit later on. We're going to transition back into football. I caught up with Adam Levitan earlier for his weekly leverage plays. So here's, one less Emerson and one more Adam. You're welcome. It's that time again, everyone's favorite segment of the week. Of course, talking about Levitan's leverage. I'm Adam Kaufman, joined by the star, Adam Levitan. It'd be a little odd if it were me. Levy, we're looking at 3 guys that you like this week, pal. Robert Woods, he's 7K. He's been a stud the last 4 weeks, anywhere between 19 and 37 fantasy points each time. And Cooper Kupp is out. Now, should we worry about Brandon Cooks eating into Woods' share in San Fran?
I certainly like Brandon Cooks in this spot. I think it's a good spot for him, but I think the biggest role change with Cooper Kupp's injury goes to Robert Woods. He's going to kick into the slot, and that means we know he'll avoid Richard Sherman and get to feast on these other corners on the 49ers who have struggled so badly. So I thought Robert Woods was going to be a good play in this game before we knew Cooper Kupp was out. Now that Kupp's 8+ targets and huge red zone shares out of the lineup is an even better play.
Browns at the Bucks. Jarvis Landry, 7,300. Tampa just terrible against receivers. Thing is, the wideouts' fantasy points have actually dropped from 23 to 13 to 12 to only 3 his last 4 games. So, are you worried about that chemistry with Baker Mayfield at this point?
Yes, we're not getting a bargain on Jarvis Landry. I'm certainly worried. However, we cannot ignore the best possible matchup for a wide receiver. We cannot ignore that he's in the slot, which is where Tampa has really struggled the worst. So, with all these injuries to the wideout core in Cleveland, with them trading away Josh Gordon, with them not using Duke Johnson, you get this huge target share for Jarvis Landry. He just has to get on the same page with Baker Mayfield. And if and when he does, and this is a great spot to do it, there's going to be a lot of results for Jarvis Landry.
Jameis Winston's on the other side of that matchup at 6,300, a $500 jump after last week's 36 points in Atlanta. No concern over the hip injury because Cleveland's done actually a pretty nice job limiting QBs.
Yeah, we pay $500 more and certainly not as good of a matchup as Jameis had last week. However, I do not expect Peyton Barber in the run game to get anything going whatsoever, and that will lead us to another huge game, massive amount of attempts for Jameis Winston. And think about the weaponry that he has with O.J. Howard healthy, with Cam Braid out there, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Deshaun Jackson. I mean, they are just absolutely loaded. And Jameis Winston has played really well when he has been on the field for the last year or so, putting up huge numbers. So, yes, it's not as good as last week, but it's still really strong for Jameis Winston.
All right, make sure you read Levitan's leverage. You should know where it is by now, but if you don't, seek it out on the DK Playbook. Thanks, buddy.
All right, you relax. I'm going to start now because there's just been a lot of this guy lately. But Reed Fowler of DK Live, Phantom Sports, Adam Mancuda, another Adam on the program, and Anthony Amico from the Action Network. They are all back.
Bopped around, traded places.
Indeed, they did.
Yeah.
All right,
Nice
NFL over-under. Gentlemen, Jared Goff has an off game against the Broncos, to say the least, 8 points. But now he's got the Niners this weekend, no Cooper Kupp. Can he go over 25 DK points here? Anthony.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We just saw the Niners get cut up by Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. They've allowed a 4.42 average plus minus to opposing quarterbacks this year. And they're 26th in pass DVO. I mean, obviously, not having Cooper Kupp isn't ideal. He's a great receiver. But Goff still has plenty of routes to 25 plus. He still has Robert Woods. He still has Brandon Cooks, and Josh Reynolds, I think, is a pretty good fill-in player for Kupp. So, the fact that Todd Gurley also catches a handful of passes as well, I think, Goff's still in a great spot.
Over or under 25 DK fantasy points for Mr. Jared Goff. Reed.
Yeah, I'm going to agree here. I'm going to say over. I think that off game that he had was really more of an on game for Todd Gurley. So he didn't need to do much against Denver, and that's really the makeup of how you attack Denver. But going back to Goff, absolutely. I mean, you look at what he's done or what the teams that have gone up against these guys in San Francisco have done. They've given up a ton of yards in terms of pass to the quarterbacks. I mean, there was one in terms of Josh Rosen who didn't do as well as the other guys, but you see Patrick Mahomes put up a lot of points. Case Keenum, albeit didn't hit that 25 DK point mark. Of Phillip Rivers, another guy, 22 DK fantasy points. When you look at all of these quarterbacks and the makeup of that Rams team, absolutely. I mean, Anthony hit the nail on the head. You have all of those skilled players, and you really, Kupp is the red zone guy. But I mean, if you're not losing one of your marquee guys, I think this offense can still support a high scoring output from Goff. So yeah, I'm going to say over.
Adam, it was the Todd Gurley show last weekend. Jared Goff, 8 points. Can he go over 25 this week against the Niners?
Yeah, I mean, it's always the Todd Gurley show, so that doesn't worry me. I mean, so give me Goff to go over. I don't think there's any question that he has that ability. I think that if the Packers can do it at home with a hobbled Aaron Rodgers, surely Jared Goff can do that this week. I'm not as worried with Kupp and his injury, simply because I think Cooks will get his. Robert Woods has been extremely explosive. I like Gerald Everett, the tight end. Obviously, Gurley can catch the ball out of the backfield. I think he has a big day, so I'm confident he'll go over that 25 points.
All right, guys. Well, yeah, I mean, hey, they're big fans. Big fans
Yes,
right
they
there.
are, especially
Let's see what
Reed.
they think of this one. Alvin Kamara's first game with Mark Ingram on the field this year. Only 7 fantasy points after averaging 36 first quarter of the year. Baltimore next Sunday. Ravens have the stingiest fantasy defense against running backs. That's something that's good to know. Do you think Kamara Reed can reach 15?
Yeah, I think he can. I mean, sound effects from you, Kaufman, that's production value. I love it.
Yeah,
But
well, I came to play, pal.
In terms of, yeah, I think you do. There is a game script for him to do well. I mean, you're not going to run Mark Ingram into this defensive line. You're really going to want to attack this with the short passes, the passes out of the backfield. And Kamara, we've seen it before. We've seen this offense support two top marquee running backs. He's hit double digit. If you want to go even 20 DK fantasy points, he's hit that quite a bit going from last season. So yeah, I think he hits this.
Anthony, you in agreement?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know we're agreeing a lot in this segment and today, but I think it's just the right call. I mean, last game I think was just a bit of a mirage. Kamara, by all reports, was a little banged up, and the game was never really in doubt on Breeze breaking records night. So the Saints were able to ride Ingram, late into the ball game. Kamara averaged 19.9 DraftKings points last year with Ingram. And, I mean, let's face it, Kamara is still the best player in this offense. I think that this game is going to go down to the wire, so they're going to have to use him a ton. I don't think that this is going to be a heavy Ingram game. I think that Kamara gets enough usage here to break 15 points.
Don't do it to me, Adam. Give me some devil's advocate here.
Not going to happen. Sorry. I'm going to go Kamara over 15 and look at it this way. It reminds me a lot of the situation a few years ago where Brady had that terrible game against the Chiefs and everyone was screaming for Garoppolo to come in and play. The owners of Kamara, the people that want to use Kamara, are freaking out this week over nothing. You got to remember, last year Ingram was part of that offense when Kamara had that breakout season. And also remember that he never had more than 12 carries in the game. To Reed's point, they're not going to smash Ingram or Kamara into the line. So what does that mean? Breeze is going to have to hit his passes with Ginn out. Obviously, Traquan Smith has some value, but then that also means more receptions for Alvin Kamara. So for me, I think that he's going to blow up this week. I think he's going to get the most points on that offense this week, and Drew Brees is going to need him. He's 0-4 career against Baltimore, 9 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. I think he's going to rely on Kamara. And again, with Ginn now on IR, I just think Kamara's role will expand. I know he was out last week, and Traquan Smith kind of had his coming out party, but I think Kamara, better game flow for him this week. He'll go well over 15 points.
Alrighty, well, Kenny Golladay has a touchdown in 3 of his last 4 games for the Lions. This weekend, he's going to face the Dolphins. Adam, you expect 17 DK fantasy points?
I do. I really like Golladay. I like what I saw when he was in college at Northern Illinois. I like what I saw last year in the preseason. He was hampered a little bit by injuries last year, and now he's having his breakout season now. In every game he's either had 74 yards or a touchdown. He's only had 1 game where he had less than 4 targets. And we all saw what Mitchell Trubisky did last week against the Dolphins. I think we all could agree that Matt Stafford's probably a better quarterback than Mitch Trubisky. So for me, I think Golden Tate, as well as Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay will have big days, much like the Bears receivers did last week. So I definitely think he'll go over 17 points and find the end zone.
Reed, Golladay, over or under 17 DK fantasy points at Miami?
Yeah, over here, Miami's top 10 in giving up DK fantasy, or excuse me, top 10 in yards given up to opposing receivers. This guy's averaging 585 with 5.6 targets, so over here.
Anthony, where are you going on this?
I'm actually going to go under here. I think we'll get a little
finally.
Thank you.
Finally.
1 out of 9.
The Dolphins, I mean, I know that they've given up maybe some of the raw statistics, but if you look at adjusted plus minus, they've been about even. So they've kind of just been playing to the level of the players that they've been facing. I think that that's perfectly reasonable. But part of the reason that they haven't gotten totally killed is Xavier Howard, who's come out of nowhere to be a pretty decent corner. The other part is just Miami plays really slow. They're 24th in neutral pace, according to Football Outsiders. I'm not really sure this game has enough plays in it for Golladay to get there, especially if he doesn't score.
Way to stand out, Anthony. We appreciate you. Thanks so much, guys. We'll talk again soon. There's Puck Talk on the way after we learn about some of the NBA's brightest new stars.
Hey there, it's your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. I'm Taryn Azak. First, you start as an NBA rookie, then you can become a superstar. But do any of these rookies have the potential to be an all-star? Let's recap their first games, shall we? Number 1 pick in the draft, DeAndre Ayton, has all the makings for a big rookie campaign. He did not disappoint. The Suns player impressed, putting up 18 points, grabbing 10 rebounds, and dished out 6 assists in the team's victory. Number 3 overall pick, Luka Doncic for the Mavs. The Slovenian struggled with shooting the ball. He was just 5 of 16 from the field, but his playmaking abilities were clear on the court last night. It might take him a few games to get used to the NBA setting. The Atlanta Hawks' Trae Young, the face of college basketball at the University of Oklahoma, put up 14 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. A pure scorer, still finding his rhythm, but has a lot of opportunity to get in his shots. Jaren Jackson put up 10 points and was active on defense with 5 rebounds, 3 steals, and a block for the Grizzlies. And the Magic's new star, Mo Bamba, lit up Twitter with a huge block on Josh Richardson. He finished the game with 13 points and 7 rebounds. So, while some rookies lit up opening night, there were a lot of guys that we're still undecided on, like Colin Sexton, Miles Bridges, and Kevin Knox.
All right, I know there's a lot of football and hoops and soon baseball to talk about too. We'll get to that. But damn it, it's hockey season. We got to bring that in.
It is.
DK Live's Jeff Ulrich is here because he was available, and Joe Holka from Action Network as well. Let's do some NHL Chase Fade, fellas. Jeff, let's start with you. Stop shaking your head. The Oilers finally scored a goal that didn't involve Connor McDavid earlier this week, and I think they're going to build a statue of that man. Chase or fade, McDavid will factor into all of Edmonton's goals tonight at home against Boston.
I'm fading it because we're taking on the weaklings of the Boston Bruins tonight.
stop
Home opener,
that.
baby. Going down, Kaufman.
Oh, there's that hot take
Look at
meter.
the sweater meter
Yeah.
just going off. All
Going
sorts
down,
of graphics
like
for you.
downtown, buddy. That's where you're going.
Oh.
Anyways, look, I do think this is a good spot for a guy like Jesse Puljujarvi to get on the board here. The Oilers' third line with Ryan Strome hasn't been very productive, but there is some talent there. So I do predict an Oilers win. I feel like their third line's going to score, so I'll say fade this, I guess. Connor will get like 4 points, but, you know, Puljujarvi get a couple goals.
Joe, give me that same fire.
Joe?
Yeah, you'll get
Joe,
there.
are you there?
Sorry, I missed what you said. Yeah, I mean, I'm always chasing McDavid, to be completely honest. I mean, they are at home, which against the Bruins definitely matters. It means he gets away from Bergeron with last change. So Boston, middle of the pack in goals and shots allowed. Normally we look at that as a pretty bad matchup, but Boston's just been middle of the pack this year. I think that McDavid gets plays at a completely different pace than the rest of the league. He's special, guys. Like, he makes all these plays at full speed. That's the difference between him and a lot of other superstars.
Joe, you're special as well, which is why I would like to ask you this. Great game between a couple high-powered offenses tonight in Toronto and Pittsburgh. Might be a good opportunity to stack some players here. So chase or fade. These teams will combine for 9 goals tonight. Go ahead, Joseph.
Yeah, I'm chasing that again. I really like this game. It's tougher to stack up because there's not a lot of great value tonight. Just the stacks in general. We know the superstars for both teams. Toronto getting Matthews and Tavares together in that first power play unit. You're all the way up to like 28K or so if you add a guy like Marner and Morgan Riley. So it is expensive, but from just a goals perspective, both these teams are among the most in goals against, shots against. It's just going to be a shootout. So I'm going to chase 9 goals in this one.
One of my good friends, Jeff, one of my favorites of all time here. What do you think, bud? Chase or fade? These teams will combine for 9 goals tonight.
Stop being sarcastic. I mean, look, the over-under for this game is 6.5. We don't get many 6.5 games throughout the year. Obviously, there's a chance for a ton of goals here. I'd still take the under. We're talking about 9 goals. And really, one thing I'll throw out, I know Toronto's got like this ultimate power play going right now, but both of these teams are good penalty killers. So I'm not saying you're going to see a dud, but you could see like a 4-3 game or something like that rather than, you know, a 6-5 shootout. So I guess I'll take the under just based on, you know, relative stats.
Jeff, what's on your shirt?
It's a dog who's also a boxer.
There we go. Yeah, all I really
happens
saw
to
was
also
the
be a dog boxer.
I thought it was like
mask,
a Pink Floyd shirt at first,
No,
but I was way
thought it was
off.
a house at the beginning. All right, Keith Kincaid has been the biggest surprise of the season so far. Undefeated, only 7,900 at home against the Avs. So Jeff, right back to you. Chase or fade Kincaid as the best option?
I chase him as the best option in GPPs, and here's why. Colorado will get shots on net. So if he comes out with another huge performance, you're going to get like a, you know, double-digit fantasy points, right? And that's what you're chasing in GPPs. You don't want a guy who's going to get like a 15-save shutout and still only get you 8 points or something like that, right? So I like Kincaid for the number 1 option in GPPs. I do. He's playing great. There's probably better cash game options, but, you know, he's under 8K and he's still affordable, so I'll chase it.
All right, what's up, Joe?
Yeah, Fadingham has the best play tonight. I agree with you. He's a decent GPP play, but in cash games, this team just doesn't give up enough shots for me. 4th fewest in the league. He actually has our 2nd lowest save prediction over in our models over at Fantasy Labs, basically just because they don't shoot a whole lot either as far as the Avalanche side of things. So I need more of a shot floor. 7,900 is a good price. I don't know if he's the best option, though.
Well, Joseph, while we have you here, how about Corey Crawford, 8,300. He's playing in his first game in 10 months after suffering a concussion last season. Chase or fade that Crawford and the Blackhawks are going to shut out the Coyotes tonight?
Yeah, I get that the Coyotes haven't been scoring a lot of goals, but I'm never chasing a shutout. I think Corey Crawford's
be
a fine
bold,
play.
Joe. Be bold.
Guys have played
I don't know how
10
bold
months.
I'm going to be here. I mean, I guess it's bold just being long on the Coyotes today in general. I think that they haven't been scoring, but they haven't been putting pucks on net. Fourth most shots in the league. I think this is the night they break through. They do have our top Corsi expectation because Chicago's not that good defensively either. Second most goals against. So I actually kind of like the Coyote side of this play.
Wow, Jeff, do us a favor. Get the sweatometer moving a little bit. Come on. Come on.
I mean, I'm not going to pick a guy who hasn't played in like 2 years for a shutout. And it's one
That's
of the
weak,
most
dude.
stressful
That is
positions in pro sports. I mean, no. Even against the Coyotes, who get shut out like every second day, I mean, I just don't think you can chase
Come on, man. The Blackhawks could bring a men's league goalie in off the street and he can wield a shutout. Why can't Corey Crawford?
Well, we'll see about. I mean, maybe we'll see about that tonight because I don't know what kind of shape Corey Crawford's going to be in after not playing for a while. But I mean, Joe brought up a good point, which I hate to admit after he poo-pooed on my other one, but yeah, you know, Chicago's not really like the greatest defensive team anymore. I mean, this isn't like 4 years ago. So been giving up a lot of goals. I think this is a tough spot for Crawford just in general because he hasn't played in so long. But, you know, I guess he's got the easiest opponents, so I'll still fade it.
All right, Joe, terrific. Jeff, not bad either. You're both all done. We are too, at least for a minute or so. ALCS on the way after
Let's
a
go,
Thursday
baby.
night football preview.
Time for your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. I'm Brendan Glasheen. The 2-4 Broncos, the 1-5 Cardinals on Thursday Night Football. I thought these games were supposed to be getting good this year. Well, anyway, always worth playing in an NFL Captain Showdown mode contest. Defensive players aren't in your arsenal, but Von Miller, you are certainly worth mentioning, sir, because Denver's star linebacker said earlier this week the Broncos are going to beat the Cardinals' grass. Well, I said grass. You can see here what Miller really said. Vaughn, your defense hasn't performed all that well on the road, pal. 34 points to the Jets, 27 to the Ravens, and your Broncos are dead last in the NFL in rushing defense. They've allowed back-to-back 200-yard rushing performances to Isaiah Crowell, which is kind of unacceptable. Todd Gurley will give you that one. How can we trust Von Miller? Things are suddenly going to come together tonight in Glendale. You can't. So you ought to pay up for David Johnson. Contest high $16,800 at captain, $11,200 as a flex. He's hitting stride, finding the end zone in 3 straight weeks. Johnson's in a good spot to do it again. Sorry, Vaughn.
All right, back here on the Sweat with Adam Kaufman. I'm Emerson Lotzia. We're happy to be here with you. And what a joy it is to have Gary and Thorne with us right now.
All right, let's
Look at him.
yeah, he's
Hey.
always
Hey, bud.
excited. Let's peek ahead to tonight, Gary. In Game 5 of the ALCS between the Red Sox and Astros, Boston won. Just 1 win shy of reaching the World Series for the 4th time in 15 years. Wow. Showdown mode. Justin Verlander starting for Houston, though he is the most expensive player on the board at $15,400. Makes sense, too, because he did well in Game 1, picked up the only win in this series on the Houston side. 6 innings, 2 earned runs, and Gary, I got to know, is Verlander a must-play tonight, considering how much the Astros bullpen has been used the past few games, not to mention a sub-2 ERA for him in elimination games?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that even with the way A.J. Hinch put together this Astros lineup the last couple of days, you're kind of seeing the desperation, like moving Correa, a hot Correa, mind you, up to 4 tonight. You know, they're really trying to make sure their stars can impact this game with their backs up against the wall. And I don't think it's going out on much of a limb to say that Justin Verlander is easily the best pitcher that the Houston Astros have, and he's probably going to have a huge impact on this game. And maybe I've been watching too much Dodgers-Brewers, but at this point, I just need to know someone's going to work deep into a ball game. And Justin Verlander is the face of that. 46 starts for the Astros in his career, including the playoffs last season and this season. 45 of those starts, he's thrown at least 5 innings. Wow. 87% of those starts, he's thrown at least 6 innings. And this is also someone who was on fire before the playoffs even started. His last 5 starts of the regular season held opponents to a 175 WOBA and scored 30 DK points or more in every single one of those starts. So, yeah, I think he is a lock tonight, just with the definite floor and combination of ceiling you're going to have.
All right, G. Well, on the flip side, Red Sox send David Price to the mound on 3 days rest.
Not
first
quite
time.
the same success.
No, it's really not. I mean, it's first time in more than a decade he's been asked to do this on 3 days rest. I believe only the second time in his career. So, how much are you considering him,
if at all?
It's tough because even when you juxtapose him just to Justin Verlander and say that I need to choose one of these two guys, I mean, it's not impossible to construct a lineup with both starting pitchers because there are some viable relievers in this game. We'll get to that in a second. But you look at Price, he's almost the exact opposite in terms of playoff track record than Verlander. His all 5 starts he's made in a Red Sox uniform in the playoffs, he has not pitched past the 5th inning, and that's just not nearly enough value. That's not enough floor for someone of that price point. I mean, if you really want to try to take a contrarian approach, I mean, and there's only 2 pitchers, so it's not super contrarian, but sure, I don't think Price is unusable in any sense, but even with the way Alex Cora has been talking up that everyone's available out of the bullpen, it seems to me that even if the Red Sox were to be winning this game, if Price was to be having a good start, I think he kind of walk away from the blackjack table if he throws like 5 innings. I just don't see him getting much volume in this game.
Yeah, a little nervous.
Well, I mean, when you're 0-9 in 11 career playoff starts. Gary, you alluded to it, though. Which relievers are you considering for tonight? I have to assume it's not Craig Kimbrell.
No, it is to the behest of every Red Sox fan watching right now. It's not Craig Kimbrell. We're actually going to go with the other closer here. I mean, it's interesting. You mentioned how much bullpen usage the Astros have had in this series because of some terribly short starts in Game 3 and Game 4. Osuna's only pitched 2/3 of an inning in this entire series. And we know going back to his days with the Blue Jays and his playoff usage there, he is someone who can be called upon to pitch multiple innings. And really, I think you have to pick a narrative in these showdown slates for playoff baseball. And clearly, if I'm pro Verlander, my narrative here is Verlander pitches 7 to 7.5 very strong innings, and Roberto Osuna is asked to clean up the rest, considering he's got more than enough gas left in the tank at this point. Plus, if you pair him and Verlander together, you're still essentially left with $8,000 per player to use across your last 4 player slots. So I think pairing those two together is a really nice combination in an Astros stack.
All right, well, Jose Altuve doesn't seem 100% healthy right now. We saw him limping a little bit last night. Would you recommend staying away from him?
I actually kind of like Altuve. I think that if people are scared off of him, you can kind of use that to your advantage. I mean, yes, he's clearly hurt. AJ Hinch came out today and said that if this were a regular season game, he would not be playing. He's essentially playing on one leg, but even on one leg, this is a guy who arguably hit a home run in their last game. I guess it's still kind of up in the air.
Lots of drama. Lots of drama last night.
Yeah.
He's looked good enough considering he's half the player he could be, but half of Jose Altuve is still a pretty fine player. And you go back to when he came off the DL in the regular season to close out the year following that point. He had a 222 isolated power and a 171 WRC plus against left-handed pitching. I think he and also Carlos Correa, considering he just got moved back up into the cleanup spot, you're not going to find a 3-4 hitter for that cheap. 7-7, 6-8. Those are just phenomenal price points considering their premium lineup spots.
Before you go, hit us with your slate-approved pick. Is it anyone other than Justin Verlander?
Nah, it's Verlander. It has to be Verlander. I just think you go with the guy who's got the highest strikeout rate in baseball. It's just kind of how it works.
Just too many narratives. Too many.
All right, big guy, we appreciate it. Well done, Mr. Thorne. One more go around with the NBA dudes right after Pat Mayo delivers his Buffalo Wild Wings hot picks.
Pat Mayo here with your Thursday night hot picks for the Week 7 opener, Broncos-Cardinals, presented by Buffalo Wild Wings. Last Thursday, there were a lot of points, and combining Barkley with as many Eagles as possible was the move. This week, probably far less scoring. So, for Arizona, David Johnson makes the most sensible play. Denver's given up an average of over 30 fantasy points to running backs the last 4 weeks and rank in the bottom 5 in rush D DVOA for the season. Plus, TJ has seen his usage grow in almost every single week this year. Last week against the Vikings, in a very negative game script, he was on the field for 95% of the Cardinals' offensive snaps and found the end zone. Again, the sneakier play from the Arizona side of the ball may be the defense. The Cardinals sit inside the top 10 in defensive pressure, just dropped Kirk Cousins 4 times Sunday, and now get to feast on this bad Broncos unit that just lost guard Ron Leary for the season with an Achilles tear. And Case Keenum, a fan of turnovers. For Denver, the uncertainty in the usage of the backfield may lead to some great opportunity at low ownership. Phillip Lindsay played the fewest snaps of anyone in the Broncos' three-headed backfield, but has just been better than the others. The Cardinals have ceded the most fantasy points to running backs through 6 weeks, and that's not going to change on a short week. You just need to pick the right guy. And I'll side with Lindsay and double down by making him my captain for the week. Those are the Thursday night hot picks for Broncos-Cardinals. I'm Pat Mayo.
All right, back one more time with Julian Edlow of DK Live and Action Matt LaMarca of the Action Network. Alex is here as well.
What's up, Mr. Barutha?
Yeah, how are you, dude?
Oh, we want to be able to hear him, guys.
Would love to hear the air coming out of your mouth.
There we go. I'm good. How are you guys?
Yes.
All right, guys, we are going to be seeing LeBron James in a Lakers uniform actually tonight for the first time, which still looks super weird. I highly recommend you Google it.
Yeah, I hate that there is not an NBA Hard Knocks for this Lakers team because I'd watch every second of it. LeBron is going to make his LA regular season debut tonight with just a wonderful cast of characters, guys. Lakers, Blazers, we are talking showdown mode right now. LeBron, nearly $20,000 if you want to make him your captain, but only north of $13K as a flex option. So, Julian, you already told me that it's not a LeBron night, not necessarily anyway, but are you going to play him, I assume, and where?
Yeah, well, if we're talking one game and LeBron James is playing in that game,
you play LeBron
it would be
James.
Pretty silly not to play him. The problem is at $19,800, there's pretty limited value plays in this game. So I don't think you can find a way to captain him. That was a really popular strategy in those NBA Finals games when LeBron was doing all the heavy lifting for that Cavs team, but he doesn't necessarily have to do that anymore. So I do think you have to play LeBron, but I think you have to slot him into one of those utility spots and kind of find a cheaper play to go with at captain if you want to fit the good plays in this game.
Alex, would you make the Lakers de facto captain your captain's pick, or are you also fitting him in just wherever you can?
I'll take him as my captain.
There you go.
I'm not, he's LeBron James.
It's not rocket science here, Adam.
He ultimately, he has the highest upside on the slate. So, in one game situations, that's generally who I like to use as my captain. So, after that, I'll trust myself to find some value elsewhere. But yeah, one game I'll put LeBron at the top.
I mean, I'd think about JaVale McGee as
like
my
him.
captain. But what about you, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, Julian mentioned during the playoffs it was very popular to put LeBron at captain, and it was also very popular not to win doing that strategy. So I think the evidence has pretty much shown us at this point that you just can't afford to roster him in the captain spot. You just have to sacrifice too much with the rest of your lineup. Like the extra, 0.5% fantasy output is not worth the salary that it costs to get it. So roster him, but just don't do it at captain.
Alex, would you like to rebuttal with that and how you're going to make it work tonight?
I don't have an amazing rebuttal. I mean, it is tough because you really just have to bank on a lot of, guys lower in the price points going off. Like if you want to take a risk on like Josh Hart or something like that, and if you're definitely putting Lonzo in your lineup, you have to go with picks like that. So it's definitely a risk.
Hey, Alex, what kind of stat line do you think he's going to have tonight?
I think he'll put up actually a relatively typical LeBron line. Like I could see like a 29 point, 9 rebound, 9 assist. But the Lakers always say they're going to come out and run. So, more possessions, he might be able to do something more than that.
Second fastest pace in the preseason for the Lakers.
Wow. Yep. Well done, Matt.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. While we have you here, though, Action Matt, which member of the Lake Show will benefit the most from LeBron's presence tonight? So Brandon Ingram or Kyle Kuzma?
I mean, given the difference in salary here, I'll go with Kuzma. He actually averaged more fantasy points per minute last season than Ingram did. He probably won't see as many minutes tonight, but I think it's going to be close enough that I'll take the slight savings and go with Kuzma.
What do you think, Julian? Ingram or Kuzma? Who's going to be happier to have LeBron there?
Yeah, I mean, I prefer Ingram, obviously, but the salary difference is the big issue. Ingram will be sharing the floor with LeBron, which, that does help players with LeBron's willingness to pass the ball. But I'll also take the savings with Kuzma more of because what LeBron won't be doing. Kuzma is going to be on the floor more coming off the bench when LeBron is maybe taking a breather. So Kuzma might get a little bit more usage, a little bit more shot attempts up there. So I'd prefer Ingram, but with how tight this slate is and the lack of value, I think you have to pay down to Kuzma.
Alex, my guess is you're going to be paying down for Kuzma if you're going to have LeBron on your roster.
Yeah, that's a good call. I have to echo what these guys said as far as Kuzma being, a better value in this position. He's probably, we know he's going to play center, and I think this is a great matchup for the Lakers to have him around the perimeter and try to drag Jusuf Nurkic out of the paint. I think they're going to try to do that. So I'd put my money on him tonight.
After LeBron, the next couple of guys, Blazers, in terms of what you got to pay for. Which Blazers guard do you think you're going to go with here, Felix? Damian Lillard, 10 grand, 8,000 or 10,800, I should say, or CJ McCollum at 9,600.
I like Damian Lillard here. I just like the spot. I know this is a big turnover in terms of the Lakers roster, but the Lakers ranked dead last guarding the point guard position last year. We already mentioned the pace of play here. If the Lakers are going up and down, that means Portland's going to get the ball to go up and down as well and get a lot more opportunities. So I just like having the ball in Lillard's hands. I know they've mentioned that they're planning on playing him a little bit more off the ball and trying CJ McCollum on the ball, but Lillard had some terrific games against the Lakers last year. I think he averaged 51 DK points against them, so I just trust him more here.
What do you think here, Alex?
This is a really interesting matchup to me because of what we saw Rondo, how we saw Rondo defend Lillard and McCollum in the playoffs last year. So, ultimately, if I had to pick between the two, I would pick Lillard. I trust him as a better player. He's the best player on the team. But I am a little worried about the Lakers, throwing Rondo on him for essentially a lot of the game.
Well, I don't think anyone's worried about Rondo being too big a defensive threat. But Matt, which guy is your favorite here?
Yeah, for me, this is Lillard, and it's really not that close. I think if you just look at their salaries, Lillard seems underpriced to me, and McCollum seems overpriced. So maybe their roles do shift a little bit this season, but given what we've seen in the past, it's Lillard slam dunk.
Is this me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. We've asked everybody.
Jules.
I'm going to read the prompter. Jules,
Yeah.
who is a value pick for this game? A hidden jewel, if you will, question mark.
Good pun. I like that.
The hidden jewels are really tough here, honestly. If we're going, I do like KCP, but he's at $5,800, so it's not like it's a super savings there. And from a Blazers perspective, I like Al-Farouq Aminu, but he's $6,200. It's not that much value, and that's exactly why I feel like you can't captain LeBron James. Honestly, when I was doing some roster builds here, I considered going almost with a punt play at captain so that you can fit the likes of LeBron, Lillard, and CJ McCollum with some of these other value guys. But I guess KCP is going to be my value pick here. He's going to be the starting shooting guard.
Matt, who's going to be your value pick? And are you punting on the captain's spot there? No?
I'm not going to punt it. I definitely have no problem going with a Nurkic type at captain, but I probably wouldn't want to go super cheap. That said, I have a hidden jewel for you.
Go ahead.
Collins, 2,600.
Oh,
all right.
He's not going to play a ton of minutes. We have him projected for 18 tonight, but that should be more than enough for him to get, value at 2,600. He's got a very fantasy-friendly skill set. He can knock down threes. He blocks shots. I think that, even getting just 15 to 18 minutes, he can get you close to 15 DraftKings points, and that would be 6x value on his salary.
I got a hidden jewel for you.
Yeah, I know. I didn't really know where you were going with that one.
That was good.
But I was waiting, and I was like, listen, we're the internet. You can say or do anything, really, so
and
whatever.
Sure enough, it was a player.
Alex, real quick, what about a value pick? Again, you're going to have a lot of them if you're going to captain LeBron.
Yeah, KCP and Zach Collins are good calls. I'm especially going to have Zach Collins in there as, LeBron as captain. I wasn't super impressed with him necessarily during Summer League, but I don't have much of an option. I'm going to bank on the value there.
Running short on time, guys. Let's get your
Less than a minute.
approved
Make it
picks.
quick.
Matt, go ahead.
No LeBron at captain.
Jules.
I mean, yeah, I was going to go with LeBron James, and you have to put him in the utility spot.
That's
so.
a LeBron night after all.
Oh,
Alex.
yeah, all that talk, buddy.
It's a one-game slate. Of course, it's a LeBron.
Be quiet,
it's a LeBron
Julian.
game.
Let
He's in the
Alex
game.
talk.
It's a LeBron game.
Oh, you gotta go LeBron. I don't
Okay,
care where you put him.
that's-
You gotta put him somewhere.
That's fine. At least you didn't say earlier it's not a LeBron night. Then all of a sudden you say it is a LeBron night.
Well, I mean, in his defense, he did
Well,
say
you-
on a 3-game slate it wasn't
I'm
necessarily
done
a
with
LeBron
Julian.
night,
I'm
but in a
absolutely
one-game LeBron slate, it's a LeBron night. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
All right. Well,
All
they're
right,
probably
guys.
not listening.
That's
anymore
it. No,
anyway.
they're gone, and so is
Yeah, we're getting about out of here. Hey, when's the sweat coming back?
Tomorrow, 6 o'clock. Is that
Great.
you and Reed?
No, I won't be here. I have other things to do.
You and me both.
Okay. High five. See you later. All right.